Okay, it is May 4th, 2020. It is currently 1:07 p.m., and I remain inside of a private residence at Woodside Apartments, apartment number 51. This is apartment of the third-party TRACEE Banks, where I remain engaged in documentation of the state system of stalking, harassment, and monitoring in a private residence. So these are the ways in which the P.O.C., for purposes of engaging in the state acting in concert with third parties, are monitoring an American citizen, and this is mere documentation of the ways in which P.O.C. manifests itself. What I want to state again, as I've already shown, there are elements that remain present at all times and are basically those which are the hallmarks of the ongoing system, but I have been thorough enough to show also the ongoing substance, and that is that all elements remain present at all times. But in addition to the fact that all elements remain present at all times, you have the fact that there are the facts that are insurmountable by the state, and this is in the form of the presence of improbable light activity inside of the environment, that is inside of the apartment. That in and of itself is proof of the system in effect. You also have the ongoing presence, the ceaseless presence by the state engaged in ongoing surveillance and stalking and harassment via aircraft and via law enforcement. These are also not questions. This is a matter of documentation, not only in the courts, but this is in a prolonged amount of documentation. Again, these are facts that are already established. This is not a question. This is the hallmark, therefore, for the ongoing system. But in order to demonstrate, in order to expose how the system works, because this is a matter of public corruption, and so P.O.C. exists under some form, and it adjusts to the factual circumstances that are relevant in a particular venue. So as P.O.C. has been documented in public, at a cafe, i.e. Starbucks, in a grocery store, i.e. Stater Brothers, Food for Less, in a market such as 7-Eleven, in a public library such as Ontario Library, the Upland Library, in a jail facility such as West Valley Glen Helen Rehabilitation Center and Central CDC. What I am showing is the consistent presence of all elements at all times, and the ongoing presence of those hallmarks, that is the state engaging in stalking at all times at each of those venues, showing the system is underway at all times and at all places, but also showing the consistency of those elements in order to demonstrate the ways in which this system is identified, and it is based on the conduct. It is stripping down the form that it appears in order to recognize that substance. And so this is how you expose the system. This is how you prosecute it. It is May 4th, again, 2020. It's currently 1:07. What I want to make some specific notes on with regard to May 4th, specific notes with regard to P.O.C. Not only are the third parties in state ceaselessly engaged in monitoring. So that is to say that there is no time where the system is not in place. There is no time when they are not engaged in monitoring, engaged in corporate invasion of privacy, engaged in creating activity as a targeted individual lives, basically. Everything that they do, they are being surrounded at all times by relevant positioning, that is the position of people, that is chiefly third parties, under circumstances where you have a target individual who's aware, who's actively documenting, confronting, and exposing. You have the state overtly engaged in pronounced forms of stalking and surveillance, and that's what this case shows. But ordinarily, what I am showing is the ways in which it exists on a day-to-day basis, where ordinarily it would not be suspected. And this is the significance of breaking down form to deduce substance, which exists at all times. And so with regard to May 4th, 2020, there are a couple instances where, again, it is not the fact that the state and third parties are engaged in the ceaseless creation of activity. No, to the contrary. Again, as I have already shown, you have third parties engaged in corporate invasion of privacy. So this is the entity in and of itself, including third parties. They are acting on behalf of the state. So I'm speaking to the entity inclusive of third parties. They are engaged in listening to monitoring, that is the target individual at all times, creating activity around that person. And so that also includes that which the targeted individual may be engaged in. So this is when I get up from the couch and walk into the kitchen, where Tracee Banks is inside of the apartment in her bedroom, aligned to me when she's in her bed or sitting on her stool next to her bed. She is physically aligned to me. As I move inside of the apartment, that is crossing paths. And as she moves, as I move, that is remaining in alignment, that is crossing path. As she moves back and forth, or as I walk back and forth, it is the same relevant positioning. And so the state and third parties build off of the targeted individual's activity as well in order to engage in POC. Right? So this is relevant to note as well. So this was specifically noted with regard to my use of the microwave, my walking to the refrigerator from the couch, specifically as I documented at 10:44 p.m. Where the state engaged in audibly making itself perceived. They were creating audible activity. The state remains present at all times, and probable light activity present at all times. Again, this is the hallmark of the system that is already established as being underway. What I am showing is the breakdown of all elements and the ways in which they manifest themselves. So at 10:44, as I get up, move from the couch and go to open the refrigerator, go to use the microwave. All of this is creation of light activity. Opening the refrigerator, opening up the microwave, using it is creation of audible activity, all of which is activity that the state and third parties also use to engage in POC of monitoring. And so typically, again, this is unbeknownst to the targeted individual. They don't understand that, they don't know, they are no way aware that they are creating audible activity that is used and built off of for purposes of being monitored. And so this is relevant to what I documented, 1044 and 1051. Indeed, as I walk back to the couch, all right, this is crossing paths again with the third party inside of the apartment with me, with 55 directly above me, engaged in tracking me in the apartment above, engaged in remaining present at all times directly above me, engaged in creating additional activity and in addition to that which I create by merely moving or grabbing the remote, turning up the TV, pressing pause on the TV, using the air conditioner, using the microwave, the refrigerator, cooking food, etc., including going to the bathroom as well. And so this is relevant to be aware of. And this is 10:44, 10:51 p.m. Of May 3rd, 2020. So that's a specific note that I want to also make highlighted. The second thing that I want to highlight with regard to what the state is currently engaged in, again, as I write my written word, they are aware of the substance, and again, this is deduced based on the conduct, right? I've already expounded upon that. That is already established. In addition to that which I verbalize, based on the conduct, this is reasonably deduced that they are also engaged in corporate invasion of privacy, listening to every word. This is the very purpose of monitoring the target individuals. So they listen to everything that I say about the POC and engage in real-time reaction, as I have pointed. These are insignificant and futile, ineffective efforts to try to contradict the pattern of conduct, which is impossible, but also they also engage in a heightened level of that activity that I may be engaged in documenting in one form or another. This is also another indicator of their awareness of that which I write and speak about the criminal conduct. And so I specifically documented 11:44 a.m. You have, as I pause the television, this is visual and audible activity that I am creating as I watch TV. This is analogous to what deputies were engaged in as I use the bathroom inside of the jail, pausing the television during day room time for no reason. And then as I documented, they create form for that reason, which was in the form of some sort of nurse call, or the deputies engaging in entering the unit to patrol, which is POC. It is mere form for POC. This is analogous to what I'm doing when I pause the TV and I'm watching TV. This is creation of activity, which the state, third parties build upon. And as I documented POC by third parties who engage in creating audible activity or visible activity in concert. You've got both 55 and the third party inside of the apartment acting in concert with one another. You have at 12:57 p.m. the state engaging in creating audible activity by us, amplified sound of airplanes flying over the apartments as I move on the couch. Right? This is the state engaging in building off of activity that I create as I move on the couch, as they are aware of my written form of documentation. So as I note, you not only have them engaging in POC, and they are doing it with simultaneity to my movement. This is indication of a pattern of behavior showing that they are aware of what I'm doing based on the fact that it is consistently occurring in that way. But you also have that which is a form of harassment. And so this is their awareness of their being documented while engaging in criminal conduct and consistently repeating it. This is that which the state is characterized as systematically engaging in while they are aware of. This is is merely reflective of a general hostility to the target individual who is exposing and documenting and confronting this corrupt system. And so this is why you have the state engagement 12:41 p.m. Again, as you engage in activity using the TV remote 55 in conjunction with the airplanes. Creating activity while I remain surrounded, relevant position, the third party inside of the apartment, and 55 directly above at 12:57 and 1:02 p.m. Okay, again, this is just to follow up. The images taken are just to confirm that, in fact, improbable light activity remains in place in the same position at all times during the day. So this is light that is being directed into the apartment, has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day, position of the sun. It merely remains present and also engages, the state engages in light activity with that improbable light that's being directed inside of the apartment in that same location. Again, this is when the sun is not out. So you've got artificial light being directed inside of the apartment at this location, which is directly next to me. Again, this is lighting up this is targeting light and the immediate environment of the targeted individual, which surrounds at nightfall and also during the day, where you have directed light, which is not coming from the sun, where the sun is rising on the east and moving to the west at a constant pace throughout the entire day, and also where you have the the active and probable light that is engaged in movement and activity. In addition to that light that remains stationary, as I captured an image just to confirm the fact that this is a remaining hallmark inside of this apartment, otherwise indicating that the system is underway. I am still going through and being thorough and breaking down elements as they manifest themselves. These are mere forms for that which is P.O.C, right? In addition to that, you've got the light activity that occurs in a plethora of places inside of the apartment, including the bedroom that the third party engages in exiting and entering for purposes of P.O.C while engaged in corporate invasion of privacy, taking one form or another. It is all P.O.C. What I wanted to highlight about 12:57 and 1:02 p.m. specifically is, again, that is the state and third parties acting in concert with one another, building off of activity that I engage in, and also engaging in that which is a form of harassment. And that is reasonably construed as harassment under circumstances where the state is engaged in such a corrupt system, is aware that the targeted individual is documenting that criminal conduct, and is actually acting repetitiously. So to demonstrate what I have is at 12:57, as I am engaged in writing out P.O.C, I'm engaged in movement. This is reaching for the pen and paper. This is writing out that which they are aware that I'm doing over and over again. You have the mere frequency of the airplane activity, which is an indicator of this intent to harass. This knowledge of their being documented, and also that knowledge is also indicated by virtue of the pattern of behavior that this is in conformity to. So 12:41, 12:57, 1:02 p.m., you've got the airplanes that are making themselves audibly perceived. The state remains present, but you have being audibly perceived, and this is for purposes of P.O.C. in conjunction with the third party directly above in apartment number 55, creating audible activity directly above my head in the living room, right? And this is as I write, place the pen down, put the notebook down. The state again engages in creating it at the moment that I place the notebook down. This is analogous to conduct such as a third party taking the form of a quote-unquote mother visiting you in jail while engaging in P.O.C inside of that facility, which is underway at a ceaseless manner, and asking if you need money in order to purchase more pen and paper. This is mocking. This is a form of harassment. This is what I want to make sure I go the extra step of documenting in order to color the character of the state. And it is highly relevant to all of the actions that the state is engaged in. And again, third-party conduct is attributed to the state. Okay, so it is 1:22 p.m. It's May 4th, 2020. I am in a private residence, and so this is relevant with regard to P.O.C. and the ways in which it manifests itself, relevant to the factual circumstances that are at play in a private residence as opposed to being in public, as opposed to being in jail. So it is 1:22 p.m. It's 3:21 p.m. and this is Tracee Banks engaged in P.O.C. while also engaging in a specific form of harassment, that is engaging in threatening conduct with simultaneity to my documentation of her P.O.C. Inside of the private residence of Woodside Apartments number 51, she has quoted the fictitious case number NWV 2000640, where there was no trial, where Judge Lisa Rogan illegally took me into custody after there being no trial, and a fake case that was never filed. So you can listen to the following. This is allegedly a direct number that she called.
There's no court date.
There is no case.
In one system, so let me check the...
There is no case.
Okay.
You're a liar. This is after having never filed anything. This is P.O.C., by the way, irrespective of the fact of an intent to threaten and seek to intimidate. This is a third party acting on behalf of the state. She's in relevant position, light activity engaged, state continually to fly over, make itself audibly present, and impossible light activity inside. She's in relevant position on a communication device, supposedly called a direct number, getting case information. That's fascinating in and of itself. Didn't have to look up anything, didn't have to search nothing. She literally called the number stating to have inside information about a pending court case that does not exist. F. Ramos is not a district attorney with the San Bernardino County District Attorney's Office. There were never any charges filed, never any trial in that case. You're talking about Kyle Brody, Kimberly Appalooch, Shannon Faye Herty, who feigned being a judge. There was never an arraignment. That was also no probable cause for any arrest by Jason Knighton and L. Keys, who assaulted and battered me and also stole my property. Where there was no trial, that Kyle Brody said on February 18th, 2020 in Department R6, R8, when I arrived on February 18th, where Tracee was engaged in P.O.C. along with the packed courtroom and the judge himself, the judge herself and the deputies engaged in P.O.C. prior to her engaging and taking me into custody, where there is no true case filed. We are talking about a misdemeanor charge. Even if there were an actual case, it has long exceeded 30 days. So we are in, what are we in, May of 2020. So this is in violation of every feasible law, yet she's claiming that there is some way that there is a pending case after I was dropped off in the middle of the night at a center being released from custody. And so we want to hear what this woman on some direct number is stating about this non-existent case. Go ahead. Again, that's MWV 2000640, Rancho Cucamonga Courthouse. It is also relevant to note that Tracee Banks mentions this information as I'm engaged in written documentation of her history of mental psychosis and demonic influence, and also engagement in constant P.O.C. inside of this private residence. The fact that she has this information that she did not mention until that moment when I was engaged in written documentation, you would think that this is something that she would have immediately mentioned. She suddenly brings this up while we are in the midst of engaged in what was verbal activity, verbal audible activity. So this is highly relevant. Again, she is a third party.
Grandparents were able to hug their granddaughter for the first time in 2 months. They still wore masks, but were able to hold hands with Cecilia, hug her, and even forward.
Improbable light activity inside of the apartment.
Hello.
Sorry, who was it doing?
Tracee Banks,
And what relations are you to her?
her mother.
Okay.
She's on the phone with the public defender's office. That's what that says. Now, again, Laura Alvarez, who was the appointed deputy public defender, never communicated with me.
August 19th.
Okay.
Laura Alvarez.
I'm aware of this. Does anybody know why?
And this is a public defender speaking to her who is not, she is not
I'm
in,
aware that she has
she
a
is,
court case August.
and so that's them communicating with Tracee Banks about another person's alleged case. So this is not only violation of the rules, this is also with regard to, this is also with violation to standard rules.
Right now she's in my apartment and it's just
And this public defender's office person stated August 19th as a date for some pending case that does not exist.
They did? Because she's under the impression
No.
that they did not give her
And
any
Tracee Banks is
information.
lying, stating that they spoke with me. I have not spoken with Laura Alvarez. This is in contradiction to Laura Alvarez's written communication on February 17th stating that trial would go forward on the next day of February 18th. This is a public defender's office engaged in concerted conduct with a third party.
COVID-19.
Yeah.
Okay. But did they give her information about another court date?
This is them talking to another person and not me, the client.
When you're released, they give you a court date.
Okay.
Come back.
Okay. All right.
And
Okay.
that's the court date that she needs to come back to that court date that I just provided you.
August 19th.
Yeah, and what's your name? What's your name?
Okay.
So I'll give you that court date.
What is your name? What's your name?
Stop yelling.
What's your name?
Stop yelling.
Shut up. What's your name?
Stop yelling.
What is your name, ma'am? Because you're sitting here talking to somebody who was not the represented
It's
person.
public information.
No, it's not.
Yes,
No,
it
it's not. That's the public defender's office appointed to
It's public
appointed. You know nothing about legal. You know
Stop.
nothing. What is your name, ma'am? Because you
Thank
are
you,
engaged.
ma'am.
Oh, now you want to hang up?
you.
What's her
Thank
name?
you,
What's the
ma'am.
bitch's name?
Thank you.
What's her name?
Thank you.
Oh, I thought she was going to give you information.
She did.
No, she didn't. She was going to give more information. And you are not the third party that they talked to. And that is directly in contradiction to what Laura Alvarez represented in email on February 17th. So this is great. This is the public defender's office engaged in violation of attorney-client privilege. No, it is not. No, it's not. It's attorney-client privilege. And you also have that which is also in violation of any sort of rules where they're clearly lying to a third party engaged in P.O.C. And also engaged in a specific form of harassment. This is in conformity to that which they also engaged in January and February, placing me on probation in a non-existent case. You had Sahara, that is the attorney that I documented engaged in arriving at the court. That was recorded on the phones, also on their cameras inside of West Valley, inside of Unit 9, and they were engaged in trying to get me to agree to some other additional date where you have a case that was never filed originally by F. Ramos. Again, this person does not exist. This is already a matter of concrete documentation, and also the timing that TRACEE Banks begins to speak about this. This is a third party acting in conformity with the state. This is a real-time reaction to that which I continue to document about criminal conduct. This is also the perpetration of the public defender's office speaking to the existence of a non-existent case that was never filed against me as they represented by Vanessa Rodriguez and Laura Alvarez as far as being filed on January 15, 2020, which was supposed to have been filed. That is within 48 hours. I should have been in court. Again, I was not even in court until January 17th because I was not provided a copy of the complaint that did also reflect F. Ramos as signing that declaration of probable cause, and the complaint itself, which Shannon Faherty, who was not a judge, read in court to me while Laura Alvarez was present, recommending probation in a non-existent case. So you have a misdemeanor case where no time was waived, no trial was ever provided, and this is by Lisa Rogan, again, who took me into custody. This is why I was subject to a second round of false imprisonment dating from February 18th to April 21st, where they suddenly came to my cell when they placed me in solitary confinement after I was continuously engaging and using their own cameras as an additional form of documentation of state monitoring that was underway by inmates and deputies and medical professionals alike. They suddenly came and engaged in a P.O.C., but the form was, do you want to get out of jail? They immediately released me that night. There was no agreement. There was certainly no pending case. That's why there was never no trial. And a misdemeanor case is not postponed this far along, and Lisa Rogan took me into custody specifically citing pending commitment, which is slander and defamation, especially when you have a fictitious prosecution where there were never any charges filed. You have TRACEE Banks, again, what's relevant about her conduct? Let's break it down. She is engaged in a real-time reaction while I am writing about her mental incapacity. She is a perverted and psychotic and demonically influenced third party, and she is aware of what I was writing about, her claiming that she's been stalked ever since I was a kid. She has a history of engaging in this sort of paranoid behavior. She also has a history of stalking me, in which I was specifically writing about when I lived in Pennsylvania, walking home from school, Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School, and she was hiding behind cars, hiding behind telephone poles instead of just walking her kids home. It was abnormal then. I am just recalling events that occurred as I was a child, speaking to TRACEE Banks' mental state. As I am engaged in this written form of documentation, again, this is nonverbal. TRACEE Banks comes out of her room. This is engaging in crossing paths, light activity across her door. as she creates audible activity standing in the living room, seeking to incite an argument, blaming me for the theft of my car by Ontario police, who has been engaged in a pattern of conduct of stalking and harassment and monitoring, in addition to surveillance via aircraft. So my car being stolen off of the street, she blames me. This is to incite an argument. So this is merely a specific form of harassment in addition to P.O.C. You have her engaging in standing in relevant position while doing so, while the resident directly above in apartment number 55 is also remaining in relevant position, while the airplanes continue to create audible activity, roaring their engines over the apartment. So as of 3:32 p.m., what you have, again, just to break down breaking down form from substance, you have TB that TRACEE Banks that comes into the living room and seeks to incite a verbal argument, which is still P.O.C., but it is also that which is directly relevant to an intent to harass, seek to intimidate, as I engage in written documentation of her history of being mentally disturbed based on her conduct from being, since I was a little child up to teenage years. I was engaged in writing out these incidents, and she comes out and starts to, and at this time is when she mentions that there is online a pending criminal case. My documentation shows the history, the absence of any such information posted online, the absence of a DA, the absence of any arraignment, the engagement by attorneys engaged in criminal conduct via the use of their professional license, acting as though they are in the capacity of a judge. That's Shannon Faherty. Again, Kimberly Applewood placed me on probation in a case that does not exist. Again, F. Ramos is not a DA, does not exist. So this is January 15th where no charges were actually filed. And this is Kyle Brody setting a quote-unquote trial date. This is Lisa Rogan not providing any trial on February 8th, that set date for trial. And so what you have is being taken into custody on that date, which was the 30-day mark after having not waived any time, and that is the sound of an airplane. Again, this is P.O.C., that they are engaging in real-time reaction. TRACEE Banks has muted her television while in relevant position, while improbable light activity being directed into the apartment. This is cyclical P.O.C. over and over again, and this is in real time. It's 3:33 p.m. So while TRACEE Banks is engaged in creating and inciting an argument, it is at that time that she mentions, oh, by the way, there is a pending court case. This is very relevant with regard to third-party conduct. It is also relevant with regard to the fourth element, and that is what I have always shown, harassment, and it manifests in different forms. If it manifests itself in forms of defamation, in forms of, and this is a broad umbrella because of the inadequacy of legislation, but under that umbrella you have third parties in the state engaging in forms of defamation, engaging in false imprisonment, assault and battery, theft of property, and this is what TRACEE Banks is engaged in at that time. So focusing on her statements, though, what is legally relevant about it as a third party stating at that time, not prior to that, but that she has knowledge that there is a pending criminal case. And again, the history shows, documentation shows, facts establish the absence of any criminal case. I was released in the middle of the night from West Valley after having been falsely imprisoned for over 90 days total. And this is after having had no trial whatsoever and having judges and lawyers engaging in P.O.C. in the form of entertaining a fictitious prosecution, because that's what was underway. They were engaged in P.O.C. and probable light activity inside of the courthouse, and deputies, judges, attorneys, and the court viewers alike engaged in concerted conduct while airplanes flew around and police engaged in P.O.C., sounding their sirens and patrolling around the physical proximity of my location at the courthouse. That is exactly what was happening at Rancho Courthouse while they were engaged in P.O.C., and there was actually no pending criminal case. This is why Rogan took me into custody, citing pending comp commitment. Has nothing to do with the false arrest that Jason Knight and L.Keys perpetrated on January 13th in front of 7-Eleven while they were engaged in P.O.C. This is by law enforcement engaging in consistently being present within the close proximity of my physical location, that is, i.e., stalking, that I have been specifically documenting since 2018. And this is that which is the form conducting a traffic stop, which was a form that Jason Knight and L.Keys presented when engaging in stalking conduct, which is P.O.C. for the police. So anyway, what is relevant? On this day, at that time, is when TRACEE speaks on her knowledge, mysterious knowledge, of some pending case after I've already been released, after having no court case, after there being no existent case whatsoever. Not only was there no probable cause, I've already stated this, but there was no criminal case whatsoever. And again, this is for purposes of concealing the system of the state system of stalking, harassment, and monitoring. This is for purposes of defamation. And so the public defender's office, again, what is relevant about what they are doing, they are likewise engaged in P.O.C. This is also what they are reporting in concert with TV. They are also engaging and entertaining this false information. This is a form of harassment, seeking to intimidate, seeking to strike fear, seeking to silence. This is a pattern with regard to the system. And they engage in that by perpetrating a fictitious prosecution to do so, trumping up information as they go. And this is what TRACEE Banks did at that time, calling the public defender's office in order to confirm what she reveals at the time, instead of speaking on it if she knew that already, how she is aware of it when I am not, why she did not speak on it prior to the time that I'm writing about her mental condition. All of this is revealing with regard to the true form versus the true substance. This is also relevant with regard to the public defender's office speaking to the one who they do not represent. This is violation of privilege, and this is all under the presumption that there is actually a true case. There is not, but what I am also showing is the fact that they do not abide by rules, policy, the rights of one who is, quote unquote, to be represented by the public defender's office. Not only that, the public defender's office not identifying themselves, TRACEE Banks has documented abruptly ending that phone call in order to avoid identification of that person in violation. They have no right to be speaking to a third party if there were a true case. And again, I was released in the heat of the night after having no case in existence and after supposedly pending some commitment, and that was an overwhelming effort to seek to defame, and that is the speaking to the malice of the system. What it also contradicts is written documentation by Laura Alvarez herself, who emailed me after she had knowledge that I would not be able to receive it or respond. She waited until the last minute, February 17th, stating that she had intentions to put me on the stand in a trial in a case that does not exist, where there was never going to be a trial, and Laura Alvarez knew this. This is why she never responded to my emails. This is why she never responded to my request that she speak to me. This is why she was engaging in P.O.C. at the courthouse by yelling at me rather than speaking to me confidently about my case in violation of privilege. This is also why she engaged in entertaining a fictitious case in the court of Kyle Brody, and before Shannon Faherty, who was not a judge, again, and Vanessa Rodriguez on her behalf during Laura Alvarez's multitudinous absences. They are both acting in concert with one another. Again, this is use of a professional license to engage in criminal conduct. Laura Alvarez's email on February 17th states that she was going to put me on the stand, where she knew that there was going to be no trial. The next day on February 18th, again, there was no trial, and I was immediately taken into custody. Laura Alvarez was silent, again, communicating with TRACEE Banks, engaging in P.O.C., who was holding up a communication device as I crossed paths entering into the courtroom, all of which is on the cameras inside of that courtroom of Department R8, where improbable light activity was lighting up the floor on that third floor inside of the court. You had the courtroom itself filled with police engaging in P.O.C., attorneys engaging in crossing paths, third parties engaging in crossing paths. This was a court that was packed to the brim before Judge Rogan engaged in the criminal act of taking me into custody after having been no true case, after having been no charges filed, after having had no trial, and citing pending commitment. Again, this is also on the cameras inside of the West Valley facility specifically, and this is also speaking to what the deputies and the medical professionals inside of that facility were jointly engaged in, and that is an effort to defame. That is also an ongoing P.O.C. in concert with the inmates acting pursuant to the same P.O.C. that is analogous to what I am documenting inside of the private residence here at Woodside. And so you have a third party aware of the written form of documentation, engaging in P.O.C., seeking to incite an argument, and threatening me with ongoing litigation of a case that does not exist, where it was actually state seeking to conceal a state system of stalking, harassment, and monitoring, which she is actually actively and currently to this moment as I speak, engaged in. And this is also to be noted, as I engaged in writing, you've got the planes making themselves audibly present over this residential area over 5 times. This is as I engage in writing that which is exceedingly damning and facts that are very unhelpful and revealing as to TRACEE Banks' identity as a third party, her concerted conduct with the state, her history of engaging in monitoring and harassment and stalking with the government via aircraft, use of her communication device, use of light activity inside of this apartment, use of cooperative acts to that end of monitoring, engaging in acts that are serving the purpose of monitoring, and also engaging in the acts of summoning the police several times from 2018 to 2019 for purposes of monitoring and harassment. She is also specifically engaged in acts of stalking, as has already been documented. So this is the substance of who TRACEE Banks is. If I engage in documenting this, this is when airplanes are making That is a sound of audible activity, actually. The TV going from mute to sound, and it's muted again as I start speaking. That's a third party listening to their criminal conduct being documented, and it exists in that simple form, just like was engaged in West Valley, as you the documentation would show the operation of the televisions, either turning on the volume up or silencing the TVs by muting it, changing the channel, or by turning it off. And often they did that by putting on that orientation, which is irrelevant when you're in jail. They would put on the orientation video that had no sound. That was mere form for engaging in P.O.C. In the background, what you have is the sound of the television going muted at the moment that I engage in verbal documentation of P.O.C. But the point of engaging in this specific note is just to note the conduct of the planes. Again, the plane conduct is the state engaging in stalking and harassment and ongoing surveillance pursuant to ongoing monitoring. And the planes, again, initially started writing the initial notes as of 1:59 p.m., but specific times based on the substance of what I was writing, you have the planes engaging in creating audible activity, which is amplified inside of the apartment. Again, amplification of sound, another hallmark of the ongoing system that is ceaselessly underway. So you have it, let's see, 1:59 where I start making written notes. But you have the plane activity that heightens, and this is a real-time reaction, as I've coined it, based on their knowledge of the substance of written form of documentation. And so 2:32 p.m. you have the planes making themselves audibly perceivable as I am engaging in writing about past conduct, concerted conduct by the third party inside of apartment number 51, summoning the police, which is a pattern of conduct pursuant to ongoing harassment and intent to defame, and pursuant to the stalking conduct by the police, third party providing forum for the police to engage in coming closer, engaging in the P.O.C. of stalking and harassment. And so writing about Officer Burnett, again, that was the May 4th, 2019 incident, following the false arrest that occurred on that day. As I write about that substance, again, that's 2:32 p.m. a plane begins to make itself audibly perceivable, engaging in, again, this is the roaring of the airplanes over this residential area. This, again, is a senior apartment complex. And you also have the engagement of, this is 3 planes flying over as I am specifically writing about the details of the stalking conduct of the substance of that case as it occurred. This is about his partner, Sequoia, and the different places where they engaged in ongoing stalking conduct. This is specific to Ontario Police, and so this is not only the May 4th incident by Officer Burnett with Ontario Police, who engaged in assault and battery, false imprisonment, malicious charges, followed by malicious prosecution, filed by Leonard Chang of the same Public Defender's Office of the West Valley Division, Public Defender PROSECUTION, engaging in that malicious prosecution. This is pursuant to the same system. This is that which was a form of P.O.C., acting in concert with a third party. As I am writing the substance of this, again, you have the airplanes that make themselves audibly perceivable. So from 2:32 to 2:47 p.m. as I'm writing about that case, I'm writing about how Officer Burnett and Officer Sequoia, that was his partner, arrived at the Starbucks, a facilitating venue, on multiple occasions. Again, this is pursuant to ongoing stalking and a specific form of harassment. Those specific officers making themselves physically present. This is intended to engage in harassing the targeted individual that is confronting and documenting the system on an ongoing basis. You have my documentation of the third party Cecilia and her partner who was feigning employment with her employer, where they drove me to the McDonald's in Ontario, where Sequoia, that again is Burnett's partner, that were present with other officers. This is not only pursuant to P.O.C. of stalking, it is for purposes of monitoring, and it is also a specific form of harassment. And then this again, the third parties that transported me to that McDonald's, this is again not a matter of coincidence, this is P.O.C. As I'm writing about the substance of this information, you have the airplanes engaging in consecutive audible activity, roaring their engines over the apartment building. Again, this is a senior citizen complex. This is not only a public nuisance that they are creating, they are also engaged in flying over that which is designed, constructed in a specific area for purposes of each apartment's right to quiet enjoyment. So these are the ways that you are able to deduce that which is totally contradictory in every way, in every legally relevant aspect of what the state is actually engaged in, and that is POC for purposes of monitoring. You also have 2:55 p.m. as I'm writing about the substance of the threat that third parties that happen to be related to the targeted individual, the credible threat posed, and this is relevant to Penal Code 646.9, relevant to Civil Code 1708.7, relevant for purposes of under the 18 U.S.C. federal stalking statute. The third party insiders posing a particular type of threat based on their relationship to the targeted individual while they are acting in concert with the state and in concert with third party outsiders that is people that are unknown. And so speaking to this identity of the third party inside of this apartment, while I'm writing about this substance, you have again 2:55 p.m. the planes making themselves audibly present. Again, this is amplified sound into the apartment. Those two aspects in and of itself, state presence and also amplification of sound inside of the apartment, are the hallmarks alone, while improbable light activity is present inside of the apartment. That is a system in and of itself, but also again all elements remain present while doing so. You have the resident above in 55 engaging in creating additional audible activity, and the third party inside of this apartment engaging in turning on the lights on and off, engaging in patrolling by walking in and out of the bedroom, back to the computer on a communication device. So this is patrolling with a communication device. This is relevant actually to the federal stalking statute, to use of the means of interstate commerce. That is her communication device, and that's what that's relevant to. This is all while I'm engaged in written form of documentation. You also have the state engaging in additional amplification of the sound of their plane engines into the apartment as I'm writing about the substance of the history of stalking, the history of monitoring, the history of defamation and slanderous comments by third party present inside of the apartment. And so as I write about the substance of that information, you have the planes again roaring their engines, and it is amplified in sound inside of the apartment. You have at 5 p.m. No, I'm sorry, at 4:47, it was a substantial amount of note-taking. You have the planes again engaging in sounding their engines for a longer amount of time. And again, that sound originates in the living room. The sound is particularly targeted in this particular area in front of the window. And this is how you're able to identify where sound is being amplified, where it's being magnified in order to concentrate its location. I can perceive the fact that sound is being targeted in this specific area in the same way that I can perceive with my eyes that light is being directed in a certain area, also based on the fact that it is not pursuant to any position of the sun or the movement of the sun, etc., has already been expounded. So again, this is targeted light, this is amplification of sound, this is state presence, acting, creating audible activity, which is targeted in its audible perception inside of the living room area, again, where I am located inside of the apartment, and doing so in concert with simultaneity to the substance of which I am writing. That is called a real-time reaction. Third parties and the state alike aware of the substance of my writing. Again, this is also revealed based on the third party inside of this apartment, her revelation of knowledge of an ongoing court date in a case that does not exist, whereas The third party did not reveal it prior to the moment that I was writing about her history of engaging in stalking conduct, her history of engaging in defamatory speech, claiming that people are following her and stalking her, which was the experience growing up as a child, merely writing about this, which is relevant to what is currently underway. This is when this information is suddenly revealed, which again is P.O.C. This is creation of audible activity while being in relevant position, while the state remains present, and while improbable light activity is present inside of the apartment. It is P.O.C., but it is speaking to a real-time reaction. This is speaking to written word, not being spoken out loud. So this speaks to that ongoing knowledge of what the target individual is writing about as it pertains to the P.O.C. This is just speaking specifically to the plain's conduct as I engaged in a prolonged amount of time in creating written form of documentation in addition to other forms of P.O.C. as it manifests itself inside of a private residence inside of apartment number 51, and this is considered contact with 55 above. The third party inside of 51, the state outside engaging in creating audible activity by roaring its engines while lights are being turned on inside. That's light activity. While engaging repeatedly entering and exiting the room, that's called patrolling, relevant positioning. While 55 remains above, that's being aligned and crossing path as they are creating audible activity. That is also with regard to the use of the communication device in relevant position. And so these are all of the elements. And again, this is all P.O.C. This is also relevant for purposes of the ongoing specific forms of harassment. This is a broad umbrella based on current legislation. Okay, this is regarding documentation occurring at 5:17 and 5:23 p.m. It's relevant with regard to P.O.C. It's relevant as it pertains to real-time reactions, and it also provides further consistency with regard to that which has been a history of P.O.C. by third parties and the ways in which that they engage in it inside of the apartment here at Woodside Apartments. Again, this is a private residence. Okay, so 5:17 p.m. you have P.O.C. You have the amplification of plane engines. This is coincided with. That was the muting of a TV in the background. That's a means of audible activity. Again, I'm speaking about the substance of P.O.C. So this is not coincidence. This is a pattern that consistently exists. And that, again, is one form of audible activity. So anyway, 5:17 p.m. you have the amplification of the sound of plane engines that is concentrated into the living room of the apartment. It's literally like if you could see the sound, it would be a laser through the living room window. That is where the sound is targeted in the living room. And this occurs at 5:17 as I am engaged in sitting on the couch as I record and write about P.O.C. Again, this is coincided with the third party inside of 51 immediately exiting the room. This is crossing path. This is also light activity as ILA is directed onto her door. This creates light activity as she passes it. This is use of shadows. This is also why they direct light inside of the apartment. It creates shadows inside of the kitchen. And so this is P.O.C. that occurs. I also document in writing the use of the TV being muted as a means of audible activity. As I write about this, what you have is literally, I'm writing about it at 5:17, so moments later, again, this is with simultaneity to my written conduct, this is knowledge as to P.O.C. You have what is called basically the alternation, the alternative use of activity. There are a plethora of ways you can engage in the same element. And so instead of through the use of the TV, because this is joint conduct in an effort to futilely engage in some sort of contradiction. It is not in any way contradiction, and I will expound on that in a second. I specifically pointed out that the TV was a means of audible activity, and that is by silencing it and it sounding on. That's audible activity when it stops and starts. And this is also that which was documented at 5:17 in writing, and I also spoke about it. So what you have is moments later at 5:23, so this is minutes later, the third party exits the bedroom. This is crossing path. This is light activity by virtue of the ILA directed onto the bedroom door. And this is also through the movement of the third party outside of the room. This is crossing path. This is turning on the stove light. Is light. That's not only is it light, but it's also a visible activity. It's also audible as you sound pressing that button. All of this is used as a means of activity. In addition to that, the TV in the bedroom remains on, so this is audible activity that's in existence. What you have is, while the third party is in the kitchen, in relevant position to me, in the kitchen, the third party is aligned to me, and while creating audible activity. So you have the rustling of plasticware, that's silverware in the kitchen, opening and closing the cabinets, opening or closing the refrigerator, using the microwave. These are all ways, ordinary, this is going to exist inside of a private residence, of creating activity. This is moments after I specifically mentioned the television as a means of activity. So what you have is, while the creation of visible and audible activity in the kitchen in relevant position, ILA is present, state remains present, this is P.O.C, but this is the breakdown of the elements. You also have the improbable light activity. This is the traveling of light, specifically to the left, and again, it also, this appearance of a wall of light moving to the left across the bedroom door is occurring, and it is visibly seen with the vertical slats on the window as the light is moving across the door. So this is light being directed into her window in the bedroom. Moving to the left, this is concerted conduct. As a third party outside of the apartment is engaging in this, this is visible activity, while audible activity is being created and visible activity being created by the third party who is in relevant position to me inside of the kitchen. In addition to that, you have the use of the TV. And again, this is where I am saying it is a futile effort to contradict. It is no contradiction. What you have are third parties that systematically engage in interrupting the television, for example, as I documented last year, which is a form of harassment, but it is also relevant with regard to the use of the television as a means of audible activity. That was constantly interrupting that. She uses an antenna, and so all that requires is 55 directly above, interrupting the signal, and this is concerted conduct with regard to creation of audible activity. And so while I stated that it is specifically TV muting the television, it is both. It is actually irrelevant. What you have is the use of the TV engaged in for means of purposes of audible activity. So while she's in the kitchen, you have concerted conduct. The TV continues to start and stop. And this is after 55 found the right position, because for a while after she exited the kitchen, it stopped doing what it was doing while she was directly in front of it. As she goes to the kitchen, you have the restart of that interruption, if you will, of the audible activity used through the television. So this is relevant for purposes of concerted conduct. And so formally, again, as I documented last year, the use of the antenna interrupting the TV signal, and this was no matter where I moved it inside of the apartment, where it would work initially if I kept the television on mute, and because they were not able to see that the television was working clearly, but once I took it off of mute, they were able to move around in the apartment directly above and interrupt that signal, which they could hear because the volume was on. You're talking about corporate invasion of privacy, and so this is a means of P.O.C. And again, this is how the third party is acting in concert with TV, who moves into the kitchen, creating visible and audible activity in concert with the light moving across her bedroom door, and the television continues to be interrupted. So it is in no way any sort of contradiction. And I just want to point that out. This is a staple as far as P.O.C. inside of this apartment, interruption of the television as a means of audible activity. It is currently 5:35 p.m. And it's May 4th, 2020. And again, I also want to note, again, the ongoing relevant characteristic of unfounded hostility by a third party inside of the apartment, while I am speaking about that which is otherwise, on its surface, totally lawful conduct, right? But there is unfounded hostility, which is a characteristic of all third parties aware that they are being documented engaging in that which is actually criminal when you strip it down to its substance, acting in conformity with the state, behind a backdrop of facts that are insurmountable. And so this is also what I want to note, that there is unfounded hostility, again, as I'm talking on my phone and writing about that which is seemingly innocuous conduct, such as walking back and forth. Totally fine to do that, totally fine to turn on and off lights, totally fine to rustle around plasticware, mute and turn off your television. You can do that all day long. You can use your computer as long as you want. But this is basically stripping it down from form into substance, and this is the reason for such unfounded hostility. This is the reason for us speaking about suddenly knowledge about a criminal case while I'm engaged in writing about a history of paranoia and stalking conduct and efforts to defame and slander. This is what is relevant with regard to the ongoing state presence, the direction of light in improbable, impossible manners, which is not based on sunlight. So this is basically people standing around pointing light into the apartment. And what is the reason for that? It is for purposes none other than that which I continue to document. And the existence of that fact is in and of itself the hallmark, the proof of the ongoing system, and it appears at every other facilitating venue that I have been at, including my vehicle and the other vehicle on Fern and G. So this is P.O.C. It's 5:37 p.m. and I just wanted to point that out with regard to use of the television as a means of audible activity, whether she's in the room or whether she moved to the kitchen. This is concerted conduct, as the occupant in 55 is the one that engages in interrupting the signal in order to stop the television from sound. Okay, again, so you have, that's additional audible activity. This is the use of the television for purposes of audible activity as with simultaneity to my movement, my use of a communication device. That silence again, that's the ceasing of the television being audible anymore. What I want to note is the ongoing, my note with regard to the state activity. Again, this is what is most probative with regard to everything that is also being documented. In addition, as far as breaking down elements and how they manifest themselves under the factual circumstances of like a private residence and third-party insiders under the form of, you know, being in the home, I guess. You have the creation of audible activity. That's what that is in the background. Improbable light activity by mere movement in front of the door while ILA is being directed inside of that bedroom window. That is clearing of the voice. This is all audible activity. Very, very easy to engage in continuous POC. Again, while the TV has ceased from sounding. And this is with simultaneity to my operation of a device. We're talking swiping the screen, placing my finger on the screen. This is in concert with 55, who's also creating audible activity in concert with the mere touching of the screen. This is exactly what was documented inside of the facilitating venue of Starbucks. This is particularly what the third-party employees engaged in, the creation of an ridiculous level of noise creation that literally occurred as I swiped the screen of a communication device. This is literally a third-party insider in relevant position listening to every word that is being uttered about criminal conduct, and there is no more form available to this particular third party openly and engaged in overt POC and listening to the targeted individual document their engagement with the state, who have flown over these apartments. Again, these are senior citizen apartments in a residential neighborhood over 15 times today, and that's just today. And this is with regard to each incident relative with occurring with simultaneity to the substance of what I was documenting with regard to POC. And so this is over 15 times that the airplanes have engaged in soaring over, engaging in it in concert to my conduct, while third parties are literally sitting around listening to their conduct being broken down and expressing unfounded hostility about it, and also engaging in that which is otherwise interpreted and analyzed as ongoing POC. And the only response that there is the overt and unfounded hostility, because you're talking about that which on its surface appears to be perfectly lawful, and the assumption is that it would never be identified and within the confines of the criminal system because of that. And so what I am showing is that this is how POC appears. This defines why the state is engaged in flying over 15 times in a day as I'm engaging in documenting elements of POC, documenting prior incidents of law enforcement engaged in stalking and harassment and theft, etc., documenting history of defamatory, slanderous conduct by third parties, and acts engaging with the police with regard to false confinement, assault and battery, and with regard to defamation and intent to defame, artificially engineering that, this is a history of conduct, a history of stalking conduct. This is all relevant with regard to the state that's engaging in the knowledge of it, and then their conduct shows that knowledge. This is a consistent pattern. And so over 15 times today is what I want to note. That's the relevance of this. And again, all elements remain present at all times, and it is perfectly, seamlessly capable of being reiterated over and over and over again. Again, you can alternate between the specific actors. You can alternate between the forms. So that is actually a quintessential example of magnified sound. That is a car that is being driven on the outer perimeter. So the streets that surround this apartment at 408 West G is on Vine and G Street. That is sound that was literally directed and amplified into the living room, and you can hear how loud that was. This is not a natural magnification. This is not a natural experience of sound inside of the apartment. It is magnified for purposes of intensifying, increasing the audible impact for purposes of monitoring. And using the car, actually, roaring the car engine, that's analogous to car alarms. It's analogous to the slamming of the car doors. This is analogous to use of the roaring motorcycle engines. It is all the same thing, which was also thoroughly documented inside of the vehicle where P.O.C. was underway. So with the factual circumstances that are at play, when you're inside of a vehicle, even when you're homeless, P.O.C. is ceaseless. And so this is also audible activity as the TV is turned up louder. Third party is nonetheless actively engaged in listening to every word. Increasing the sound is a means of monitoring, so understand what that is. This is substance. Taking the form of, again, this is a good tutorial, taking the form of not listening by virtue of turning up the volume. No. The substance of it is verbal. This is audible activity, increasing the volume of it while they are in relevant position and in probable light, and remains inside of the apartment, even on my person, in the same identical place inside of this apartment and inside of the bedroom door. So anyway, that was real time with regard to the use of a car speeding by. That's supposed to be the form, and some sort of realistic form with regard to the way that sound is magnified into this living room. Again, this is readily demonstrable, not to say that it would not be heard at all. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that the sound of car engines is magnified in its level of volume inside of this apartment. It is at an unnatural height. The same thing with the airplanes as they magnify sound inside of this apartment. And again, this is consistent with regard to that which was documented inside of the jail facilities. Use of sound is very instrumental with regard to monitoring. And again, this also speaks to what the state is engaged in, and it's also relevant what the state is engaged in when police are engaged in use of their sirens. Blowing the nose is another audible means of P.O.C., by the way. When the police and the state in general are engaged in use of the sirens, this is magnification of sound while they are engaging in patrolling. This is circling the proximity of the physical location of the targeted individual. Also via airplane, where they are flying over the target individual's location. This is a third party engaging in crossing path right now. And that is an airplane flying above. And it is also creating visible activity. So what I want to note with regard to what was documented inside of the cars, the airplanes have migrated, again, as they always have, as I've always documented. They migrate relative to my location. Again, as I've already shown in video and a plethora of pictures and other forms of documentation, that the planes were flying directly over 7-Eleven when I was at Vine and G in my vehicle. Then they were flying over Fern, directly over Fern behind the vehicle when I was parked on Fern. As of right now, what I just saw and what you just are listening to is the not only amplified sound inside of the apartment, but also the visible sight of the airplanes flying directly over what would be parallel to G Street. So they have migrated forward, and that is for purposes of creating audible and visible activity. This is P.O.C. And again, it is always relative to the location of the targeted individual, and this is the consistency of that. The fact that the state is engaged in stalking via aircraft is already established. I am just showing this is what the elements look look like. This is how it manifests. It's consistent at every time. You also look at the timing as I'm documenting them engaging in repetitious flying over. This is a residential area, engaging in that which is concentrated on this residential area, whereas the planes are audibly perceived directly above this apartment. They are not perceivable prior to their visible sight, prior to their presence flying here. This is the same conduct that I documented over a prolonged amount of time with regard to the aircrafts in particular. They are engaged in targeting this area where the target individual is at, and so that is why the sound is targeted over where I'm located. That's why they remain visibly present over where I'm located. Again, that's already documented while I was on Vine. Then when I moved to Fern, the airplanes moved. When I used the laundromat inside of Woodside, that's when the airplanes moved. They migrated forward. Now that I'm inside the apartment, you see them migrating forward again from Fern. This, in addition to following at every other place that I've gone. And so this is a state engaging in plain stalking conduct, surveillance, and so these are the ways in which you identify the system at work. And so third parties that are acting in concert to that end express unfounded hostility. These are factual connections that are irreducible. This is exactly explanation as to the court system, as to law enforcement, as to third-party conduct, third-party insiders and outsiders, those that I know and those that I do not know. And by know, I mean just knowing their name. Third-party insiders are those who take a form of being close to the target individuals but are actually engaged in I want to further note, so that was also relevant for purposes of plane number 16. And again, the timing while I'm engaged in narration verbally of P.O.C. That is the pattern of conduct. It is P.O.C. with regard to the state's ongoing stalking and surveillance. And so, like I said, that is not a question that is already established. This is merely a breakdown of elements and demonstrating how they are present, occurring at all times, including the fourth one, under the broad umbrella of harassment, and the ways in which that manifests itself. This also speaks to the inadequacy of current legislation, because harassment in and of itself is relevant, but it is more intricate, it is more maniacal, and it deserves more concentration with regard to specific laws that the state is engaged in when they are engaged in such criminal conduct of targeting American citizens. But the other thing to note, as I open the door, you have a third party that is directly in front of the door. As I open it, again, this is due to corporate invasion of privacy. So they have the foreknowledge of my getting up from the couch. This is why they are present, walking past, appearing as though they are walking past at the moment that I open the door. Their presence was very close to the door and engaging in walking, but again, prior to getting up, you did not hear the basket that the third party was dragging on the concrete, but you did hear it as they started moving once I opened the door. And so again, it's just this attention to detail. It is just this common sense with regard to facts and as they exist to show the consistency of all elements. And so you have third parties that are literally surrounding on all sides. Tracy Banks inside of the apartment, 55 above, and a third party outsider, again a stranger, engaged in a behavioral pattern of being present around. Okay, it's 6:01 p.m. I just want to go on and note again, because I am going to be as relentless as third parties in the state are engaging in criminal conduct. And so this is literally with each touching of my communication device and use of operating it, turning it on. The television is used as a means by the third party in relevant position to me on the opposite side of this wall, engaging in ongoing monitoring, creating audible activity. That is the muting of the television. And this is concerted conduct as the resident above is engaged in covering the signal, the antenna signal. It's not cable TV, it's antenna. And so all they do is cover the signal in order to stop it from operating, which I know by experience because that was that which the number 55 cyclically engaged in P.O.C. And that is another airplane roaring its engine with simultaneity to my documentation of third parties engaging in concerted conduct at 6:02 p.m. That's number 17. So you have 556, what I was getting to, I want to make sure that I expound on that enough. The presence of the third party, again, that is substantive information. The presence in relevant position on the opposite side of the door is P.O.C. by third parties, okay? This is again, deducible based on the fact that you did not hear prior to my opening up the door, you did not hear this third party, I did not hear this third party dragging their basket across the sidewalk. They were stationary in front of the door. Again, as I get up off the couch and move towards, start opening up the door, they are aware of my movement, and this is why he was so close to, this was a male, this is why he was so close to the location, so close to the front door as I began opening it. And again, this was as I was documenting the ongoing action by the state, engaging in that, again, repetitious P.O.C, engaging in cyclically flying over the physical the physical location of my the physical location of where I'm inside of a private residence documenting P.O.C. And this is that which they consistently engaged in. And at that time, that was plane number 16. You have plane number 17, again, while I'm making this verbal form of documentation and speaking about third parties that surround engaged in joint P.O.C. conduct. This is pretty much, this is in no way any kind of form. This is blatant stalking conduct by the state, and that which has been in existence again since December 18th when I specifically started documenting it, which originated in Pomona, California, followed into Los Angeles, El Monte, Orange County, that's Costa Mesa, Orange, all over, which is already documented, and this is P.O.C. for the same conduct. And so this is in no way the state seeking to stop the conduct, but it's also, that's also relevant based on the court's conduct, seeking to evade service of process, which is what the San Bernardino Superior Court did, which is what the Appeals Court did, which is what the Supreme Court did, which is what the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court did by virtue of Lisa Rogan's false imprisonment and slanderous defamatory conduct of pending commitment while she took me into custody, where there was no case in existence, no charges filed by an F. Ramos, who doesn't exist, and by doesn't exist, what I mean is does not exist on the California bar site. The name does not exist. The name with the San Bernardino District Attorney's Office does not exist. So this is fraudulent and criminal conduct by the state, and this is the entirety of that system. And so that was plane number 17 at 5:56. When are they doing it? At the time that I'm engaging in documentation in verbal form of P.O.C. And you have, again, this is relevant to what I have been speaking to, being surrounded by third parties. You have a third party hiding on the opposite side of this front door and moving as I am opening up the door. And that is not a coincidence that they are present so close to the front door. That's relevant positioning, appearing as though they are walking past, and they always appear in that form because they are not going to stand there and look as though they are the stalkers that I'm documenting them as, especially where you have an ongoing pattern of that conduct, except for number 42, which yesterday took the form of quote-unquote gardening, where you have the grass and the flowers which belong to Woodside Apartments, but you have them taking on this form while they are actually in relevant positioning, engaging in P.O.C. It is no different than every other third party. This is also that which was documented. It's analogous to the third-party conduct that I documented in 2018, 2019, when I traveled in my car to different cities and third-party strangers. These are third-party outsiders engaged in stalking conduct as I drove around, communication devices in tow. This started with Officer Umana of Los Angeles Police Department, who was engaged in P.O.C., and this is what started the acceleration of such documentation. Again, that was an entirely different county where the identical behavior patterns were underway, and this is when I began documenting it. And this is also a month later when I submitted the tip to the FBI regarding public corruption, federal stalking, and also when the planes arrived less than 30 days later, less than 3 weeks later, December 18th, in Pomona, while I was parked on Valley Boulevard, and the state has maintained presence ever since then. And so that is exactly what that is. That is not reasonably argued in any way, and that is plane number 17 flying over this senior community. This is also that which would be zoned for what would otherwise have to be in conformity to that which would not deprive senior citizens of their right to quiet enjoyment under a lease. And so this is also just another illustration of the ways in which the state is engaged in conduct and third parties are acting in concert with it. It's 6:07 p.m. and so that was just to note plain number 17 today, the simultaneity with which the state is engaging in that conduct, the ceaseless manner that they're engaging in stalking and surveillance. And again, this is indicating the very proof of everything that I'm breaking down into elements, and also the conduct of the third parties that engage in P.O.C. under wildly unpersuasive and ineffective and futile forms as of right now, as I'm breaking down the elements and the ways that they manifest themselves, which is very, very easy to do, and the presence of any lack of coincidence. And again, the third party on the outside of the front door that appears to be walking past at the moment I'm opening the door, and the state is engaging in flying over, being audibly and visibly present. That is not a coincidence. The clinical term for that is called P.O.C. It is a pattern of conduct. Third parties surrounding me inside of the apartment, and so that is literally being surrounded on all sides. And this is what is occurring on a ceaseless basis, because I am not getting up and opening up the door at every minute to see, in the same way that inside of the jails, which would be visible on cameras not only inside of the unit but outside of the unit, in the hallway and in the bubble where deputies were engaging in hiding around in the jail, entering at the moment that I engage in sudden movement or unregistered activity for them to be in relevant position, engaged in patrolling inside of the unit, hiding inside of the unit at night, acting in concert with the third-party inmates who are creating activity inside of the jail while in relevant position. And I was surrounded inside of the cells by the inmates either above or adjacent to me. And so that's P.O.C. It is the exact same elements, just in a different venue, and just third parties and state actors wearing a different costume, if you will, but it is the same exact conduct, in addition to the state engaging in stalking conduct via aircraft in the jail. So that is P.O.C. It's 6:09 p.m. It's May 4th, 2020, and this is a private residence, and so this is P.O.C. under the circumstances of being within the confines of the target individual's otherwise private life. So this is P.O.C. on a ceaseless basis when you're using the bathroom, when you're sleeping, when you're eating, at all times. And this is where improbable light activity remains active. It's 6:10 p.m. and what you have is the light that remains stationary on the living room door. It is literally engaged in light activity that is radiating on the door now, where the sun is setting to the west, and these apartments are north of the sun. So the sun is not in any position up toward the north to be providing any direct light onto this wall or through the window. This is improbable light activity that continues to exist, and most desperately so, as was shown also on the cameras inside of West Valley Jail, inside of Glen Helen Rehabilitation Center. And this is P.O.C. 6:10 p.m. Okay, so again, it's 7:45 p.m. right now, but what I want to go back a couple minutes, what I documented is the physical layout of P.O.C. and how it exists. Again, the wall is no obstacle. You're talking about the state that is engaged in flying over and around at all times, the police that are engaged in constant surveillance as well on the ground, the use of communication devices by third parties that surround inside and outside of the apartment. And so what I'm showing is that the third party inside of this apartment, TB, remains in relevant position and even goes the extra effort of sitting on the side of her bed to be perfectly aligned with me, where I actually sit on the couch. But even when she's on her bed, she is still aligned with me. That satisfies P.O.C. in and of itself by virtue of her relevant presence that is specifically being aligned with me. Again, walking to the bathroom, walking to the mirror, that's crossing paths. So what occurred with regard to P.O.C. as I document in more than one form, what I want to note is the sequence of events. And so crossing path as I enter the bathroom, turning the light on, that's visible and audible activity, the fan comes on. Turning on the bathtub, which is what I do because the state and third parties are corporately engaged in listening to me and engaging in bathroom monitoring every time that I'm in the bathroom. So this is listening to you take your clothes off, listening to you use the toilet, listening to you wipe, listening to you flush, listening to you shower, listening to you engage in everything. And so this is why it's relevant what a third party insider such as TRACEE Banks points out via means of P.O.C., that's for the purpose of it, but it's also relevant under that umbrella of that which is harassment, what a third party utters as a means of P.O.C. And so she's bringing up, this is a tangent, but I just want to bring up the relevance of what she stated, bringing up as a retort to what I'm stating as a matter of fact based on her history of conduct. She engages in that which is defamatory, which is slanderous, which is actually malicious based on her conduct in conformity with the state. When she asks a question such as, when's the last time you took a shower? And this is a third party that is engaged in invasion of privacy. This is a sexual offense engaging in this act that I'm documenting, state stalking, harassment, and monitoring, because of the fact that the third parties in the state alike are mutually engaged in ceaseless invasion of privacy. And this is at a magnitude that is unfathomable to the ordinary targeted individual who ordinarily has no idea that it is occurring. And this is that which Tracee Banks has been engaged in for years. While I lived with her at different locations, the last one being in Upland, California, when I became aware of it and abruptly moved away out of that apartment, and this is the reason why. Now, for purposes of documentation and exposure of the system, I am, again, exposed to the same, but it was also openly documented but as a state system as I moved away from Tracee Banks, and third-party outsiders were engaging in the same behavioral patterns. And this is how you identify the system, moving away from one whom I knew personally, and seeing the same behavioral patterns by those that I do not know and places where I have not been, engaging in that which I have never engaged in, businesses in other places, working in different cities and counties where you have the same behavioral patterns underway. This is how you identify the system. So anyway, back to the statements that she makes. It's relevant with regard to bathroom monitoring, what is occurring inside of the bathroom, which is ceaseless monitoring. And so upon exit, you hear the airplane engines as they are quieting down after having roaring while was inside of the bathroom. That's a means of audible activity. This is them flying over. This is also directly relevant with regard to the state engaging a relevant position above me in the sky as they're flying over, knowingly while I'm in the bathroom. This is the state. This is the same thing that the deputies were doing inside of the jail where I was, inside of the cells, engaging in bathroom monitoring in concert with the cellmate inside the cell. They always remained inside the cell with me. Or you have them engage in surrounding me through relevant positioning in the state that continued to fly over the jail facilities, and in probable light activity that was directed inside of the jail facility in ways that are impossible, and also inside of the cell in ways that are impossible and would never otherwise occur based on nature of the position of the sun and the constant movement of the sun, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What you have is, again, a crossing path as I enter and exit, audible activity as I turn on the bathtub, and again, my reasoning for that is because I am a target individual who is aware that my privacy is being serially and ceaselessly invaded, which in and of itself is a form of suffering, hence my proposal of additional legislation to adequately address where you have this sort of system underway, engaged in concert with third-party insiders who are engaged in this secret, well, what was formerly a secret. This is a corrupt system that is occurring at all times, not only by those in the apartment, but those outside of the apartment, at every place that the targeted individual goes at all times. And so this is a sexual violation and an extensive, unfathomable level of invasion of privacy. It exceeds ordinary invasion of privacy is the point of it. And so you have the sound of banging. This is noise. This is just a means of monitoring while I'm using the bathroom, in addition to the light being on, in addition to the water that I run in the bathtub, which is customary, just based on knowledge of being listened to at every moment in the bathroom. But it is relevant for purposes of that which they build on for purposes of P.O.C. Again, exiting the bathroom, you have a TV in relevant position in the kitchen, to me in the toilet. So this is why you got to break down. You're looking at the floor plan. Where is she physically? She is in relevant position, aligned to me in the toilet, while you have noises occurring while I'm in the bathroom, while you have the state engaging and flying over, roaring their engines. This is audible activity. This is relevant positioning. This is while she's creating light activity in the kitchen after she had already went in her room, was sitting on her bed, immediately changed her position upon my entrance into her bedroom, and this was noted by the fact that the water bottle that she was touching immediately was shaking still as she stood still. So this is her positioning herself as I'm entering. This is very weird conduct on the part of a third-party insider who's aware that she's being documented moment by moment. But anyway, you have me in the bathroom, and she moves to the kitchen, back into the kitchen. All the lights are on. She's creating audible activity using the sink. aligned to me while I'm in the bathroom. While there is noise occurring while I'm in the bathroom, this is creation of mere audible activity, and this is also while the planes are flying over. Left her communication device on the bed, which is also aligned to me inside of the bathroom. This is relevant for purposes of use of means of monitoring via communication device, and she is also in relevant position to me in the kitchen. This is just another way, but what I'm saying is there is no way to contradict or diminish P.O.C. at all places inside of this apartment, including when I go to the kitchen and she immediately exits to join me in the kitchen under some other form of just happening to get up when I go into the kitchen, is P.O.C. And so this is what occurs at 7:53. So this is specifically categorized as bathroom monitoring, and this is a third-party insider. But what you have is the target individual is subject to such monitoring inside of every place that they go. There is no privacy. And you also have an admission by this third-party insider, TRACEE Banks, who has actually uttered that inside of this apartment in the year 2019. Again, once I always throw facts at her, she makes many actually admission statements that are relevant, legally relevant with regard to her identity as a third party and a third party insider at that. And she has said out loud actually, retorting, unaware, again, unable to control that and unable to actually anticipate that which is coming by the means of prosecution and exposure. So the statements coming out of her mouth, which is that I have no privacy, and that's specifically what she stated inside of this apartment. And again, that's also confirmed by you've got Officer Burnett with Ontario Police, who played back a recording with Sequoia upon my illegal arrest of the verbal argument that occurred between TRACEE Banks and I prior to her calling the police outside of the apartment over 10 minutes later in the parking lot. And so the argument occurred inside of the apartment. She called the police outside of the apartment. Minutes later, I saw her on the phone. And so this is speaking to that which is a system. I am merely breaking it down, showing how it exists. When you are aware of it, target individual will otherwise never be aware of it, especially because the police would not be engaged in such a heightened level of aggression. The state would not be engaged in such overted efforts to stalk and surveil. Typically, you do not have airplanes following and stalking you. This is an aggressive act and an act of harassment seeking to it is designed to seek to defame the targeted individual that they intended to have discredited by virtue of that. But this is that which is serving the purpose of exposing every aspect of this system and moment by moment as it operates, the ways in which it manifests, and this is relative to a private residence. So you've got the targeted individual who is being violated. These are conducts that the targeted individual is subject to, and this does violence to the targeted individual by third-party insiders, third-party outsiders alike. It's 7:55 p.m. and again that was 7:43 where you had an additional planning. You had her returning to the kitchen again while I'm in the bathroom after I'm seeing her sitting down, perfectly free to do. What you're looking at though is the progression of P.O.C, the timing, the position. This is how you get down and strip form down to the substance. All elements being present and probable light activity present. State engaging in flight. Roaring their engines over the apartment. That's plane number 21 again. I'm sorry, number 22 for the day. It's 7:56 p.m.